Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us today for this webinar dedicated to studies in France. We are really happy to have you here today. So we are going to provide you with as many information as possible to make the beginning of your semester in France goes as smooth as possible. My name is Hélène Verny. I'm Higher Education Officer within the French Embassy in Norway. More precisely, I'm working within the French Institute in Oslo. But I'm not alone today. I'm here with my colleagues from Denmark and Finland. And also this webinar has been organized by the French Institute in Estonia. Unfortunately, our colleague is not here with us today, but she will remain available and at your disposal for all the Estonian students to answer your questions by email. So don't hesitate to do so if you still have questions at the end of this webinar. Like I said, we are within French institutes today. So in Denmark, your contact is Jules. And in Finland, it's Linnea. So today we are gathering students from the 4 countries, meaning Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Estonia. And this is also an opportunity for you to network a little bit, because maybe you will be studying in the same university in France. So that's also a nice way to meet a little bit in advance and to start having some contacts. Just to give you an idea about the content of this webinar, we are first going to do a small count. So that's a quiz. Maybe some of you know the website already. I will explain you how it works. That will be the opportunity for us to get to know you a bit better. And then we'll start with the presentation. So we'll focus mainly on accommodation, health, finances, university, life in France, and also the resources you can use. Then we'll have a small quiz again to test a little bit your knowledge and what you've learned from this webinar. And then there will be time for a Q&A session. So you will see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A section in which you can already write down your questions and we'll just enter them at the end. And before concluding this webinar, we will give you the opportunity to network, like we said. So we'll use a whiteboard section that will appear on the screen. And here you can register, so you will already have some sections based on the region of France where you will be in, and then you can just write down some contact details if you wish to share them. You don't have to do so, it's free. One last information before starting. So this webinar is being recorded, but don't worry, because of course we respect the privacy of your data. The part in which you will exchange your private information, that one will be cut of the recording. So now what I would like to offer you is to already start. So like I said, we are all working within French Institute, but we are part of a broader network, which is named Campus France. So Campus France, that's a national agency for international students who are going to France. And our aim is really to be here to help you first identifying opportunities to go to France, but also, just like today, to provide you with information about what you need to know before going on your mobility. So there are 5 main steps to get ready to go to France. Some of them have to be done before your departure, and others you will have to do upon your arrival in France. But we'll just come back to that a little bit later on and just describe every step. So first thing, housing, that's quite a big one. What I wanted to mention first is the CRUS. Maybe some of you already know the name, maybe others don't. So the CRUS, that's a regional organization, and that's the one that is in charge of hosting students within public residences. So here we are talking about university residences, and I guess that most of you were offered the opportunity to actually have access to a room, because what is quite nice is that every university usually makes sure that there is a few buildings dedicated to international students. So that's a really nice opportunity for you to have access to accommodation quite easily and not to have to do lots of steps. So you just have to ask to your contact within your own university, and they will make sure to give you the contact of the person in France that is in charge of that. You have some deadlines to respect, so some of you have maybe already booked a room. And what is quite interesting with the CRUS is that in terms of pricing, it's quite low for France. So you really have access to accommodation, you're already on campus, you're in a building with other international students and French students as well. And you have to pay quite a low rent. So I would really recommend you to check on the Crous website and to ask the person in charge of international relations within your university if you want to know more information. But that's one possibility, of course, to be accommodated within public university residences, but you can also go for other possibilities because there are plenty. So you can, of course, decide to go for as well a private student residence, or to just go to have a shared flat with other students. But in Paris, you also have a few accommodations that are dedicated to international students. So for those of you, and we've seen it at the beginning of the CAT, there are some of you that are going to Île-de-France. So that could be one thing to check. But otherwise, you can also be hosted within host families and student housing with private landlords. In order to help you a little bit, for those of you who decide not to go with public university residences, we have gathered here some links that you can use. Most of the websites are in French, so for those of you who are not mastering the language, I can imagine that it's quite difficult, but I would recommend not to hesitate to be proactive, meaning that, for instance, if you are looking for a private accommodation or a shared flat, you can always answer to offer, but you can also create your own offer. So don't hesitate to leave a message. I'm an international student. I'm looking for a room from that time to that time. And then maybe you will also get in touch with some landlords that are eager to rent their room. How to finance accommodation can be a question for you. So what you need to know is that actually it's quite nice, but you can also access to the financial help that are being provided to French students. There are a few steps, of course, to register. And then the amount will vary based on the rent that you will have to pay and your personal situation. But that's something I would highly recommend you to do. That's not that complicated, so you need to go on the website of what we name la CAF, Caisse des Allocations Familiales, so that's basically the French family fund. And then you can really get some huge part of your rent, actually, that is going to be covered. I mean, that's always interesting to have 20 to 30% of it that will be covered by these financial helps. So you can do everything online on their website, and you can also do a simulation to have an idea a little bit of how much of your rent will be covered by these helps. Now I'm going to give the floor to Jules, who is going to tell you a bit more about health.
Yeah, so now let's talk about health. And so Hélène, if you want to just go through the slides. Yeah, so first of all, like in France, there is the French social security system. It's free and mandatory for everyone. So when you will arrive in France, you will have to subscribe to this social security. So you will have to follow this website and to create an account on a platform named Amélie. And so with that, you will be allowed to get the reimbursement of your health costs. It's like 70% on average. And yeah, of course, you have to do it. But yeah, also you can subscribe to another insurance, like private insurance. Usually you don't have to do it, but it's strongly recommended. And yeah, it's better to be well covered, let's say. And so there are many different kinds of insurance companies in France. So here there is like a few of them, like La Mutuelle des Étudiants, SMEREP, or Emevia. But we will provide you a list with all of them, and then you can give a look. And if you want for more security, you can subscribe to another insurance company. Also, here is some maybe small tips for your everyday life. Maybe you want to save some useful phone numbers before leaving. So probably all of you know about 112, that is the European emergency number. but there are some specific numbers in France, of course. So if you have like a health problem, you can call the 15. But for instance, you can also want to call like the 17 for the police or the 18 for the fire brigade. So maybe just wrote those numbers or have them in mind. It can be useful sometimes. Now I will continue with finances, and we can talk about the way if you want to open a bank account or manage your finances while you are staying in France. So the cost of living in France can be like can really change depending on you are in Paris or some smaller cities, of course, like in many countries. But what you have to know is that being a student, you will have a student card and you can benefit like a lot of discounts on many hobbies or stuff. So it can be pretty interesting. Here it is a small table about like an average average prices of your daily life in France, in Paris, and outside Paris. And so you will have time to go through this table to have an idea if you are not so sure how it can be. And so you will have also additional expenses when you will arrive in France, maybe I mean, or before, with your registration fees. So as most of you are going there in like for one semester in Erasmus, you don't have to pay like the student and campus life contribution. But may some of you that are staying longer or are not inside a partnership or something, you will have to pay this. But it's like you pay just once at the beginning of the year. It's like 92 euros. So I think it's pretty okay. Maybe you want to open a bank account also in France. It's pretty easy. You just have to schedule an appointment with any kind of French bank, and there is a lot. So just pick up the one next to you or like around the corner maybe. You will just need like 3 documents, like an ID or passport, of course, a proof that you have been enrolling in a French higher education. So like basically you will have this paper as soon as you subscribe to your university in France. And also like you will have you will need a proof of address. So it can be like a bill for energy or just a lease contract or whatever. But maybe some of you can manage with their own bank in your country. Like sometimes there is some partnership, sometimes you can just get an offer to avoid any fees abroad and so on. And of course you can check with your bank already. Something that is that you can do. It's not always really usual, but of course you can try and you can try to find a job when you're in France. It's allowed. Of course, you have some different settings than classic job. You have to work up to 60% of the yearly working French time. So maximum it will be 20 hours a week, and depending on your job, but the hourly rate is approximately 10 euros per hour. You can find many student jobs at the uni. So it's working for the library, international desk, or also for the HUS, the housing department. So just maybe ask when you arrive at the university, try to look around in your city, and if you want, I'm pretty sure you can find something. Also considering the grants and benefits for some students, for instance, in Norway and Denmark, when you are going through a partnership just for one semester, you can still have access to your state grants. So that is pretty interesting. But I'm sure you knew it already before applying for this mobility. You can ask also for an Erasmus Plus grants, you can see this directly with your international office within your university. But for some specific universities, or depending on many parameters, here we have a grant search engine, so you can look what is possible with your country when you're moving to France and so on. So there is the link, we will provide it to you, and you can go through and try to find like any kind of grant if you want to, if you need it, can be useful.
So now I will take the floor back, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about university and your life in France within university. So already, the first step is, of course, to register upon arrival within the French institution, higher education institution, in which you are going to study. Some of these steps you have already done, meaning the administrative registration. I can imagine that when you applied for the Erasmus semester, you already had to fill in some form that were submitted by your own university to the university in which you are going to be in France. And you had to upload a few documents. Now, also, when you will be in France, you probably already have to fill in what we name a learning agreement. So that's the one in which you have to indicate the courses you wish to follow. And based on these courses, of course, your academic timetable is going to be drawn. But at your arrival, it can actually be that some classes are not going to be offered anymore, or some of them are going to be incompatible with others. So you will have to write down again what classes you are actually following, and based on this, you will get your academic timetable. So as soon as you will arrive, you will need to go to the international desk, or maybe just within the secretariat of the department in which you are going to be at university. And you will have to fill in a few forms just to state that you are well arrived in France and that you are definitely enrolled within a French university. And this is really important because this step is first going to allow you to get your grant, like Jules was mentioning, like for instance, the Erasmus grant, you can only get it as soon as you have uploaded the document with the signature of your one representative within the French university. But also that step is really important for you to get your student card, and your student card is going to be so important because that's the one that is going to give you access to plenty of cultural but also sport facilities on the campus, but also, for instance, to the library or to the university restaurant. So, and there you will benefit from many services at really low prices. For instance, sport facilities are accessible for free to students who can show their student card. So that's really important to do as soon as you will arrive in France. Then to tell you a little bit about our education system, because it's quite different from what you might have experienced in the country in which you are right now. So first of all, as you know, the winter semester is going to begin in September. It's mostly in September. It depends on the university and the department in which you are studying, but it can be at the beginning, at the end of September, but I guess most of you will arrive either at the end of August or in September. And then you have your exam of the first semester. It also depends on your faculty actually, but most of the time it's either at the end of December or beginning of January. Because the second semester, the summer semester, it begins in February or maybe at the end of January. It really depends. However, you will already be on holidays quite early actually, because usually the summer holidays start in May or June. In terms of teaching methods, you will be mainly following two types of teachings. So the most common one is actually lectures. Lectures means that you will be in big lectures halls, amphitheaters, that's how we name them. And you might be in some of them with 200, 300, 400 students. So in lectures, it's mainly one teacher, one professor that is going to talk, and you don't have that much interactivity because of the big number you are. But next to that, you also have seminars, and with seminars, you are in smaller groups. So you are in small classrooms of 15 to 25 students. And during these seminars, you will be way more able to have a real exchange with your professors and to also do more concrete exercises to train a little bit your knowledge and to ask the questions about the lectures you just had. In terms of examination procedures now, so during the seminars, we have what we name control continu. So it means that you will be graded during the whole semester, and that will constitute a share of your final grade. And it happens during the seminars because then you have to do sometimes presentations, or you have group assignments, but also case studies, and you will be graded on this. Now, at the end of the semester, you have a big season period that we, exam period, I mean, that we name partiel. And that is spread normally over 1 week, but sometimes it can be 2 weeks. And during this week, you will have exams almost every day. So that can be longer exams, sometimes short ones. You can have short questions, but sometimes you also have to write dissertations. It really varies. You can also have, so that's about the written exam, but you can also have oral exams, of course. It all depends on your fields of study and the university in which you are going to be. But it's usually quite intensive. But the thing is, like the week before this partiel, you usually have it free. So it just gives you some time to revise. And also, an interesting thing for you to know, and I think you're not really aware maybe of that, because that's not something that exists in Nordic countries, you have the compensation system in France. So it means that in France, you will be graded between 0 to 20. So 10 is the average, 0 is the lowest grade, and then 20 is the best grade. And the thing is, like, to validate your semester, you need only to have the average grade, meaning 10 out of 20. And every subject is going to compensate one another. So for instance, let's just say you're a business student and you have macroeconomics and microeconomics. If you get 5 out of 20 in microeconomics, but then in microeconomics you get 15 out of 20, the average is 10, and that allows you to validate your semester. So that's really an important information for you to know, because it means that you don't have to be strong in every topic. Don't be afraid. And that's how most international students actually don't struggle that much to validate that semester. So that's still something quite interesting for you to know. Then, in terms of how life is going to be at university, first, you have some people that are here to help you when it comes to administrative tasks. For instance, the one we've already mentioned, meaning opening a bank account, or if you are facing any issues with accommodations, a course, or also if you want to get an extra insurance, there is a welcome desk, and people over there are here to help you to provide you with relevant information, but also, for instance, to fill in some forms if you don't get it. So don't hesitate to go over there. And then you also have, for the more social aspect of life, I would really recommend you to just check if your university, within your university, you have a buddy program that is organized, and also an Erasmus student network over there. So the buddy program is really interesting for you. It means that from the beginning of the semester, you will have a buddy. So that's a French student who is studying in that university for quite a while, and they will help you settle in and also discovering your new environment. That's quite nice, because then they can give you nice recommendations about places to hang out, nice bars, coffee places, and all this. So that's always nice to have one person like that as a reference from the beginning, that is also from your generation. And the Erasmus Student Network is one usually organizing some cultural, well, let's just say group activities that can be touristic, sport, cultural, and that's always nice. For instance, they might organize like a few travels to like the neighborhoods, like the neighboring countries of France, but also like some parties in the evening. So I would really recommend checking if there is an Erasmus Student Network within your university. And usually there is always one. And what I was mentioning about the welcome desk is that you can find more information on Campus France, our website. You have this interactive map, and it just indicates all the reception facilities within the different main university cities in France. And last point about university. So as we've seen at the beginning, most of you are actually going to study in English. And that's fully okay. You don't need French to be able to validate your semester within the French universities. However, we would still recommend to just learn at least the basics of French, once you will be over there, just to facilitate your integration. And it can be always useful, you know, when you are doing your groceries or going to an event organized within the city by, I don't know, a French organization. And what is really interesting for you is that within each university, you always have an international office, and they usually provide French classes that are designed for international students to help them a bit and to provide them with the basics. Sometimes that can be students that are also offering some help regarding that. So really, that's an easy way that doesn't cost anything, or like at really low prices. It depends on the university in which you are. But you have classes for every level, and that's an easy way to get to learn French a little bit better. And that's always an advantage to have another language than English on your resume, because you know, well, French is of course quite an interesting language if you are considering working within any European country, because of course it's like the second diplomatic language, but also one of the official language of the European Union. And that's also a really important language within the business field. So now I'm going to give the floor to Linnea, who is going to tell you a little bit more about life in France, and just quickly before, some resources that we already mentioned, so that you can find on Campus France website, and you can check that after this webinar or just before your mobility, and you can find a lot. So Linnea, the floor is yours.
Yes. Okay, so hello to everybody. I will speak about life in France in general. And yes, Ellen, you can maybe continue with the slide. Thank you. Yes. So France is the first tourist destination in the world, and it is located in the heart of Europe. In 2019, there were 90 million international tourists who visited France, and Paris is the third visited city in the world. And while studying in France is a unique opportunity to discover the different French regions, but at the same time also to travel inside Europe. And many travel, cultural, sport associations and organizations offer discounts to students, and a student can get discounts, for example, in museums, in cultural places, and some shops, and in transport. Okay, so here are 6 good reasons to study in France. So France has an excellent higher education with 3,500 public and private institutions. France is also a strong economic power, and France is the third largest economy in Europe. There are also many programs in English. So right now there are more than 1,600 programs in English in France. And France offers a pleasant and interesting lifestyle inside Europe, like in the heart of Europe. And French is also an international language with 300 million speakers. And French is also the world's second most learned language. And France is also a welcoming country towards the international students. And 42% of the postgraduate students are international. Okay, so in France, there are 18 different regions, and the culture, the traditions, and cuisine may vary a lot in different regions in France. The 5 biggest cities are Paris, Marseille, Lyon, Toulouse, and Nice. And the cuisine, ingredients, and dishes can also vary by regions. Cheese and wine are like usually major parts of the cuisine. So usually French people eat a simple breakfast, and lunch and dinner are the main meals of the day. And football is the most popular sport in France, and other popular sports are rugby, cycling, tennis, handball, basketball, and sailing. And Paris is also center of an important number of fashion shows, and some of the world's biggest fashion houses have their headquarters in Paris, for example, Chanel. And France has also thousands of museums, theaters, musical performances, and festivals. So France has 49 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 8,000 museums, 32,000 theater performances, 35,000 musical performances, 2,000 cinemas, and 1,800 festivals. Okay, so France Alumni is a worldwide network with over 333,000 members, and France Alumni is in 125 different countries. So after your studies, you can also join the France Alumni Network. So France Alumni is a professional network which allows you to be in contact with other persons who have studied in France. And with France Alumni, you can also broaden your professional opportunities. So France Alumni organizes social events, cultural events, networking events, and conferences, and also some professional fairs. Okay, so we will also organize a photo contest. So Campus France in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Estonia, and Finland will organize a photo competition for the students who will be moving to France for their studies. So the students who want to participate can just take a photograph of their life in France between 15th of August and 31st of October. So there will be many prizes to win. The first prize will be an air ticket to France. Then the second prize is a Polaroid camera. And the third prize is an e-reader. And then in November, we will publish the photo on our social media. And then mid-December, we will announce the winners of the contest. Yes, so let's keep in touch. So you can email to us if you have any questions as well, and we will help you.
So now I will stop sharing my screen, and that's time for the Q&A section. So Linnea is going to read the question that you wrote in the Q&A section, and also in the discussion space, because I saw that some of you did ask a few over there.
Okay. Yes, so can the presentation be sent to us afterwards? So yes, we will send the presentation to you after the webinar is over, to your email. And then second question, did I understand correctly that the Erasmus students don't have to pay CVEC and registration fees? So I think this question is for Jules, no, for Hélène.
Yes, so I can answer this question. Indeed, as an Erasmus student, you don't have to pay any registration fee because you are already doing so at your own university. Plus, you don't have to pay this social campus life contribution because that's only for students who are fully registered within a French higher education institution as students studying over there, not as Erasmus students. So you don't have to pay any extra fee.
Okay. The next question. Is there something similar to VIPs in France? And if so, do you need a French bank account to use it? And I think this question is more for Jules.
Actually, I think I can answer because VIPs, it's in Norway. I don't know if you have it in Denmark, so I guess it was asked by Norwegian students. We do have something similar, but it's not at all widespread as VIPs is in Norway. So we do have PayPal as well that we're quite using a lot between French students, and otherwise the equivalent is named Payly, but actually not that many French students have it yet. So I don't think it's that much needed to open a bank account just to have that, because that is not going to be required as often as VIPs in Norway. So that's up to you. You can just go to France with your Norwegian bank account, and then you will just have to pay some fees from time to time because of the exchange rate, or you can decide to open a bank account. But that's not needed regarding that type of applications.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any advice for bringing one's French level from B2 to C1? From what I understand, it is difficult on exchange to not speak English, as most interactions happen with other exchange students and not French native speakers. Okay, so I think that in the university, like within your university, you can also study French. Usually, I think there are courses for students. Okay.
Plus, if I just may complement a little bit your answer, you also maybe should look for language cafe, because that's also a place where sometimes you have also students who are also willing to speak in a different language, and then there is always a French table. So that's a nice opportunity to as well meet with French students. And don't hesitate during your lectures, there will be plenty of French students over there. So just don't hesitate to go to them, and they will be really eager to speak in French with you. That's no issue.
Okay, thank you. Hi, do you know if students in France are provided with the opportunity to talk with therapists, counselor, psychologists if needed? For example, in Norway, it is mandatory to have this kind of system at school. How is it in France? So, Hélène, can you answer this question?
Yes. So within the facilities and French campuses, you always have some psychology that are over there. So you have these medical facilities. Then it is mandatory as a French student or as an international student who is registered for a full degree in France to go to at least one appointment. But as an Erasmus, you won't have to do so. But in case you need someone to speak to, they are always located on the campus, and you can just go over there and ask for an appointment, and there will be someone to help you go through any difficulties you might face.
Okay, the next question. I have ADHD, and I'm wondering if there usually are facilitations, accommodations available for students like me. Okay, so Hélène, do you have an idea for in this case?
Well, it really depends on your institution, but in the same facility that I just mentioned before, you have some people that are specialists to provide help for students with, well, that can be also disabilities, because we didn't mention that, but also we do welcome students with disabilities, whether mental or physical, or for students who have specific medical issues. You can always go to this medical facility, so this reception facilities, and ask, but usually they do try to accommodate as much when you are a little bit, what we could say, a specific case. And then during the exam period as well, you can always benefit for a little bit more time. So meaning that usually you have a third of the time more than other students to let you the time to finish your exam.
Okay, so next question. Why would you need a French bank account? So I think this question is for Jules.
Yeah, actually, as we say, it's not mandatory, but what can be interesting, and to answer another question, for instance, if you want to have the APL, like the housing help, you need a French bank account. So at least for this, if you want this fund for your apartment or whatever, it will be required. So at least for this, it can be useful. But of course, it's not mandatory.
Okay. Are we graded based on the numbers 0 to 20 and not the usual ABC grading? Will those numbers be transferred to ABC at our home institution? So yes, you will be graded from 0 to 20 and not the usual ABC. And once in your home university, I think it depends a lot, like depending in which university are you going to get like ABC, like relative number of the same, which corresponds kind of the French system, or I think it depends of your home university.
So basically that is part of the bilateral Erasmus agreement that your home university has with the one in France. And then they have already sorted all this out. So at the end, you will get French, of course, like you will get a summary with your French grades, and that they will be translated by your home university. So you don't have to worry about that. That will be done for you by the administration.
Yes. Okay. If French banks need a proof of address and a landlord might want you to have a French bank account, then how can I get out of this loophole? Okay, so I think this is again for Jules.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I'm still struggling
Yeah.
with this thing. So,
Okay.
which
Yes.
question is this, please?
So from Rasmus, if French banks need a proof of address and a landlord might want you to have a French bank account, and then how can I get out of this loophole?
I think that a landlord doesn't need to ask you to have a French bank account, or is it? I don't know if it's already if you are already in this case, but it should not be required for you to have a French bank account from your landlord. So if your landlord is asking you to get a French bank account, let's say it's not really normal. I don't have a more accurate answer. Sorry for this. Maybe guys, do you want to complete?
So I can supplement a little bit your answers, and that is actually linked to the next question, the Q&A section. So what you can do as well is that we have this, so you can be asked for guarantees of any kind. And then in order to help students in your shoes, also the ones that cannot have a guarantor or that do need some, well, it works as well with the French bank account. You have some organizations that have been created, just like Bizarre, and that service is provided to also have someone being your guarantor. So meaning that you have someone that is stating that yes, you are you have someone to pay in case you cannot face with the rent, and also that you can ask, I think, for the proof of address, like you can ask the administration of your university in France, because they can make a document like what we name attestation, an attestation that you are well registered, and that should work.
Okay. Currently in the process of finding accommodation, and the visa process is a bit confusing. Is the visa necessary? I do not want to fill out the forms wrong and risk a fine. Okay, I think this is again for Hélène.
Yeah, so that's just what I was mentioning just before. It's not always mandatory. It just depends on the landlord that you have. Some of them are going to ask you to have a guarantor that is going to state that in case you are not going to, well, in case you are not paying your rent, there is someone that is responsible for making sure that every month the rent will be paid. And that's why they have been creating that type of organization, just like Bizarre. So I don't know in what type of housing you are aiming to get, but that might be necessary, yes.
Okay. Then the next question, is there an equivalent website to fin.no, a website for selling and buying secondhand, both furniture, clothes, housing, and so on in France? Okay, I think Hélène, can you maybe also answer this question?
Yes, so yes, there is an equivalent. It's named Le Bon Coin. I will write it down in the chat section. And you can find second-hand furniture, clothes, everything similar to Fin. However, on Fin, I know that there are many offers for free. In France, it's not always the case. It's at a low price, but it's not offered for free, just like you can find on Fin. But still, that's a really easy way to get access to second-hand, whatever, furniture, clothes, whatever you need.
I just sent the link of the website, Le Bon Coin. You can also use Marketplace or stuff like that.
Okay. Is there a social platform for Nordic students in the different parts of France? For example, Nordic exchange students in the Southwest, etc. Okay, Hélène?
I mean, We don't have it yet. Now that could be something for the future. I mean, if that's really something that you would be interested in, that's what we are a little bit trying to do, with asking you if you wish to share your email address. And then we can make sure that you are in contact with one another. And maybe you can create afterwards a WhatsApp group or a Messenger group. I don't know which platform you prefer, but that could be an idea for the future, actually. We'll see how it goes.
Yes, okay. At some universities, for example, at Sciences Po, Saturdays are teaching days. Does this mean that it is normal to have teaching and lectures every Saturday? Okay, so I think it depends a lot in the university which you have. So you can sometimes have it and sometimes not. And yeah, like depends a lot. Okay, then next question. I think I missed what you said about connecting with other students who are going to study at the same universities. Where should we register which university we are going to study, and how can we connect?
So the idea at the beginning was indeed to have this whiteboard, but indeed you don't have access to it because we are within the webinar framework of Zoom. So right now we're gathering, of course, the contact details of the people who want to share them. It's not at all mandatory. Afterwards, what we could do as well, if you're interested, we could create a Padlet. That's like a free virtual board online that you can access. So I can add a section in the email address following this webinar, but that's only if there is a need for it. But that's something we could definitely consider doing if you want to have something.
Okay, then one more question. Do we need a visale and a guarantor, or is a visale enough?
So visale is basically playing the role of your guarantor. So that's the same thing, basically. They are doing it for you, so you don't need an extra one.
Okay, thanks. Okay, do we need a French bank account to receive the CAF support? So it's for Jules.
Yes. If you want the CAF, you will need a French bank account. So that's one of the only conditions.
Okay, so if you don't have more questions, have a nice day in France, and best of luck for your studies and for your arrival in France. And thank you for joining the webinar today.
Yes, thank you very much for your attention. To all the people that send the email, we will just gather the different cities you are going to, and we will send the email to all of you. And we will also send you some information about the photo contest. So you have this, and we will directly send you the presentation and all the things you need.